All right, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're essentially opening up a high-stakes mission briefing on the future of the global economy. We're going to unpack a strategic guide that acts as the ultimate leadership playbook for what might be one of the most critical, complex roles on the planet right now, the CEO and director of Generation Unlimited, or GenU for short. If you've ever wondered how the absolute highest levels of global leadership are planning to navigate the massive economic tidal waves heading our way, well, you're definitely in the right place.
To really get this, I want you to step directly into the shoes of a global CEO facing a completely unprecedented existential challenge. Imagine sitting at your desk and trying to answer this question. How do you prepare 1.8 billion people for jobs that, honestly, don't even exist yet? Artificial intelligence, the massive green transition, rapid digital shifts, they are completely rewriting the rules of work as we know them. We aren't just talking about a minor course correction here. We are talking about entire job categories vanishing, brand new ones appearing out of thin air, and the basic survival skills of the modern workforce completely changing overnight. And just to put the sheer staggering scale of this task into perspective, 1.8 billion. That is the number of young people between the ages of 15 and 24 on the planet right now. It's literally the largest demographic youth bulge in human history, and it's primarily concentrated in the global south, which are often places where economic opportunities are the most constrained. So, if you're the CEO of GenU, this is your target audience. You aren't just running an organization, you're trying to secure the economic future for a massive chunk of humanity. To wrap our heads around this massive mandate, we're going to break this explainer down into 5 core areas: the 1.8 billion youth challenge, the GenU partnership architecture, scaling those flagship solutions, the 8 critical leadership capacities, and finally, what a transformative global legacy looks like here. Let's get right to it. Okay, Section 1, the 1.8 billion youth challenge, which is all about a labor market in totally unprecedented transition. We are currently facing the most profound shift in the labor market since the Industrial Revolution. It's basically a perfect storm, driven mostly by the breakneck speed of artificial intelligence and the very urgent realities of climate change. The jobs of yesterday are disappearing fast, and the young people entering the workforce right now, they're the ones feeling the most immediate, brutal impact of this shockwave. Now, the absolutely crucial point here is that formal education systems simply cannot catch up. You know how it is. Bureaucracies move incredibly slowly. But AI? AI moves at lightning speed. These 1.8 billion young people cannot just sit around and wait for traditional schooling to adapt its curriculum over the next 10 years. They need immediate, real-world, highly marketable skills today. The entire mandate here is about bridging that gap between learning something in a classroom and actually earning a living in the modern economy. But to tackle a problem this incredibly fast and this massive, you just can't rely on old structures. Which brings us to Section 2, the GenU partnership architecture. Simply put, this is not your grandfather's UN. Launched back in 2018 and anchored within UNICEF at a highly dynamic D2 directorate level, GenU was deliberately built to break the mold. The contrast here is actually pretty striking. Instead of the traditional UN model, the one that relies on slow intergovernmental processes, assessed contributions, and super heavy government bureaucracy, GenU operates as a public-private youth partnership. It's powered by voluntary funding and runs like an agile, entrepreneurial global marketplace. It treats youth not just as passive beneficiaries who receive aid, but as active co-creators. It's a total paradigm shift from rigid, old-school programs to dynamic, high-speed mobilization. And notice how this architecture brilliantly builds from the top down and the bottom up at the exact same time. Step 1 starts at the absolute peak with the Global Leadership Council. We're talking actual heads of state and giant tech CEOs making massive resource commitments. Step 2 cascades that down into national coalitions, operationalizing those big goals within specific countries. But the real magic, that happens at Step 3, grassroots youth. The power is placed directly into the hands of local young people who actually co-design and own the solutions. Moving on to Section 3, scaling the flagship solutions, or what I like to call the CEO's strategic arsenal. Because a great structure is nothing without strong execution, right? What actual, tangible tools does the GenU CEO have to change the world? Let's take a look at the heavy-hitting programmatic weapons being deployed here. GenU's core initiatives are incredibly ambitious but highly targeted. We have Passport to Earning, targeting 20 million youth by 2030 with essential digital and AI skills. We've got Green Rising, aiming to engage over 10 million youth in climate action and green jobs by 2025. And then there's Yoma, which is this fascinating youth marketplace that verifies skills using digital tokens. Let's break down how these actually work in practice. First up is Passport to Earning, or P2E. What's deeply interesting here are the stakes involved. The source notes that without deliberate, massive investment right now, the AI transition could literally become the most powerful driver of inequality in human history. P2E is designed to stop that dead in its tracks. Think about equipping a single young girl in a remote village in the global south with free, certified AI literacy. You aren't just teaching her to code, you are handing her the keys to participate in the future global economy. It's a direct, targeted strike against historic technological inequality. Then we have Green Rising. Look, young people are the generation that's going to be most affected by the climate crisis, for sure, but they also possess the greatest entrepreneurial energy. This initiative basically flips the script. Instead of treating youth like passive victims of climate change, Green Rising provides the skills and market connections to turn them into active green entrepreneurs. It empowers them to drive the green economic transition straight from the grassroots level. And then there's Yoma. One of the absolute biggest barriers to youth employment in developing countries is the credentialing gap. I mean, how do you prove your skills to an employer if you couldn't afford a formal degree? Yoma takes a really unique approach to solving this. Young people build their skills, they complete real-world practical tasks, and they earn verifiable digital tokens. It makes their informal grassroots skills completely visible and trustworthy to actual employers. It's essentially a digital marketplace for human potential. Which brings us to Section 4. The 8 leadership capacities, or as it probably should be called, the ultimate superhuman balancing act. Because you have to wonder, who could possibly run all of this? The D2 GenU CEO role requires this highly specialized, almost crazy combination of hard and soft skills to actually pull off this mandate. This CEO has to seamlessly shift gears constantly. One minute, they're a visionary predicting the future of the economy. The next, they're a diplomat commanding respect from heads of state. And then they're a ruthless operator scaling digital infrastructure. They need deep expertise in youth programming, but they also have to be totally fluent in AI and digital literacy. They have to catalyze wild innovation while maintaining rigorous analytical impact measurement. It is an incredibly rare, demanding combination of traits. And honestly, here is where it gets really tricky. GenU is 100% voluntarily funded. That means the CEO has to constantly manage high-value corporate partnerships. They have to deeply understand the massive commercial interests and reputational considerations of tech giants and global corporations, while simultaneously, and this is key, maintaining strict UN institutional integrity, keeping the focus entirely on what is best for the youth. It is a total high-wire act of sophisticated commercial judgment. Furthermore, they have to ensure this entire massive apparatus operates with absolute equity at its core, because structural barriers are not gender neutral. Young women, youth with disabilities, and those living in extreme poverty face exponentially harder barriers to entering the digital economy. For GenU, actively dismantling these specific barriers through universal design isn't just a box-ticking compliance exercise. It is the fundamental quality standard for every single program they run. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, a transformative global legacy, and what human flourishing looks like in the 2030s. All of these tactical, day-to-day executions, the AI training, the green job tokens, the massive corporate partnerships, they all point toward a much larger, long-term blueprint for collective human success as we move into the next decade. I absolutely love this quote from the source material. The world's youth are not a problem to be managed, but a force to be unleashed. That is the beautiful, driving core philosophy behind Generation Unlimited. It completely reframes 1.8 billion young people from being a demographic burden into the greatest engine for innovation, economic growth, and human flourishing the world has ever seen. That is, of course, if we simply give them the tools to participate. So as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought. We've just spent time looking at how global leaders are desperately trying to skill 1.8 billion young people for an economy that is literally shifting under our feet. But what about you? The rules of work are changing for all of us, no matter where we are. So how are you preparing for the AI and green economy transition? It's definitely a fascinating question to ponder. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep learning.